Hey there YouTube, Steve here from Fast Ice Gaming, and today I'm going to talk to you about what is historically my favorite video game console of all time, that being Super NES. Now, specifically we're going to talk about my 10 favorite games for the SNES. And as before, I'm not saying that I think these are the best games for the SNES, just the 10 games that I like the most. And in compiling this list, I realized I haven't actually played that many games for the SNES, believe it or not. So, without further ado, number 10, Super Mario Kart. Now, some people might look at this game like, oh my gosh, Super Mario Kart, oh, it needs to be higher. Well, it's a racing game, and while I love it, and it has a lot of nostalgic value, I just don't love it as much as the other types of games on the list, and as we get up the list, I'm sure you'll understand. I played this game a lot with my father when I was a kid, and we spent hours and hours and hours trying to get gold trophies in all the cups, and it was it's a well put together game. It has 8 characters that you can choose from, which was pretty good for the Super Nintendo age. And the Mario Kart series is still going strong today, which is a testament to what this game started all those years ago. Number 9, Final Fantasy II on the SNES, which is actually Final Fantasy IV. I picked this game up at the farmer's market after I had gotten into Final Fantasy at age 13, and I played it over the weekend at my mother's house and ended up beating the game, and I loved it. It was a terrific game, and I love the redemption arc where Cecil starts out as a dark knight and becomes a paladin, and finds out things about his heritage and the truth about the real evil threatening the world, and all the memorable characters. And one thing in particular I liked about it is that it gave you a 5-character party, which is something that I have yet to see repeated in a main entry Final Fantasy title. And yeah, of course, if the game's designed to be manageable with 3 or 4, that's fine. I just love the idea of being able to pack as many characters into one party as possible. So Final Fantasy IV gets a lot of ups in my book for that. Number 8, ActRaiser. I found it to be an extremely fun game. The simulation aspects more so than the side-scrolling platformer. Those were fun too, but I really got into the civilization building where you would control your little angel friend and help the townspeople build up their settlement by using natural disasters and helping them unlock different technologies, and then having to go back and forth between the different settlements to bring music to this settlement or bring a cure to this settlement and things like that. And I was really disappointed. I played ActRaiser 2 and they removed the simulation aspects and it was just a full platformer. I played that game for a long time at the start thinking, okay, just the next level they're going to unlock the simulation mode, and then finally I just got frustrated and looked it up and said, oh, there's no simulation in this game. I'm like, oh, well, that's lame. And personally, I'd really love for there to be an ActRaiser 3. I know there's a couple of developers out there and other game industry personalities who've expressed interest in taking on ActRaiser 3. I'd love to see it. I would back a Kickstarter or other crowdfunding effort to bring an ActRaiser 3 with simulation to Steam or wherever. But other than that, that's all I have to say about it. It's a good game. Number 7, Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. Now, this one I borrowed from a friend all the way back in high school. Ended up being a good game. I don't know why there aren't more Mario games in an RPG style. This ended up being a terrific game. I've never heard anyone say anything bad about it. And it was made by Squaresoft, who was still running hot on all the Final Fantasy games they made at that time. So a lot of that shows in the gameplay, and I really like the inclusion of Geno. He's a popular character. I never did master using his ability Geno Whirl because in Super Mario RPG they have timed hits where you can do additional damage if you time the blow correctly and hit the button at the right time. And I could do that with a lot of characters' attacks, but not Geno's special there. And personally, I would love it if they came out with another RPG-styled Mario game. I don't know why they haven't. It's been over 20 years, and if there isn't a Mario RPG, if there is a Mario RPG about that, and I'm just not aware of it, please let me know. But I'm not aware of any. I had heard that there was a sequel, but it only came out in Japan. I'm not sure how true that is. But it's a game I enjoyed immensely, and I recommend you play it as well if you have the opportunity. Number 6, Wing Commander. Now, some people might look at this as a slightly controversial choice. Yeah, it's not one of the, big titans of Nintendo like Mario, Metroid, Final Fantasy. But look, it's a game I enjoyed. I love outer space shoot-'em-up games, especially ones that have a story, like this one does. And I remember I played Wing Commander. I borrowed it from my Uncle Tim, and I loved it. I played it so much, I ended up beating the game and getting all the in-game accolades you could possibly get, because if you do well in certain missions and you achieve certain milestones, your commanding officer will award you with medals and things like that. So I enjoyed playing that game immensely, and outer space shoot-'em-up games where you have a point like that, I feel like are sort of underrepresented in today's gaming landscape. I've played a few games. Back in the PlayStation days, you had Colony Wars, and then I played one for the 360 called Dark Star 1. Good games. I enjoyed them. Not super popular, as I recall, but I like them. I know they have No Man's Sky out there, but looking into it, it's not really something that I think I could get into. But Wing Commander, and they had also the Secret Missions, which is another game, but it's gameplay style and everything is virtually identical. All that's different is the story. Number 5, Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. Now, a lot of people might not like this game quite so much because it was so drastically different from the original Super Mario World, and then of course you have the notorious crying Mario if he gets separated from Yoshi when he gets hit. Yeah, that's annoying, but let's be real. It's a minor annoyance, and the rest of the game is solid. I love the art style. I love the combat mechanics where you can use eggs and throw eggs and make eggs by swallowing enemies and things like that. And the variety of the boss battles, and like you transfer Mario to a new Yoshi at the end of each level, and then even the title screen changes depending on where you are in the world. It's pretty cool. I like that a lot. And if you haven't played it, I recommend you find a copy of it, or if it's on Virtual Console anywhere, go get it and play it because it's a good game. Number 4, Secret of Evermore. This is another game I borrowed from a friend. You play a boy who is pulled into a sort of time warp, and he ends up in this dinosaur world. And it's him and his dog, and they have to fight all sorts of enemies. And through the game, you meet other people who came from the world you were originally in, and they give you different abilities and powers. It's a solid action RPG. You go around, you level up. They have a system for magic called alchemy, where you find different ingredients in the world, Like you can combine wax and oil to do an ability called Flash that does fire damage to an enemy. And I enjoyed it immensely. I never actually beat the final boss. I think I got stuck where to go in Gothica, and never found my way further than that. But other than that, I can't say too much else about it. I recommend it highly. If you like action RPGs, it's a must. Number 3, Super Mario World. So now we're getting into the no-duh section of the list, and how does Super Mario World not end up on the list? It was the pack-in title for the Super NES. I got it for my 10th Christmas, and it was amazing. I loved every minute of it. I found all the secrets in the game, the special zone, and finished all the levels in the special zone. There's just so much variety, and the introduction of Yoshi. I just love the amount of variety they have in the worlds and the enemies, and even later in the game you can find different colored Yoshis that have different powers depending on what color they are. And then even if you have a green Yoshi, you can achieve those different powers depending on what color shell Yoshi has in his mouth at the time. And one cool thing is that you could give extra lives to the second player. Like, let's say you're playing with like a younger sibling or something who's not as good at the game as you are. So you can just help them stay alive by giving them extra lives. It was a lot of fun. It ranks up there with the most classic and happy memories of mine that I have playing SNES as a kid. And if you've played SNES, I would be surprised if you haven't played Super Mario World. But if by some strange twist of fate you haven't, go play it because it's amazing. So number 2, Final Fantasy III, which is actually 6. I played this one immediately after I finished Final Fantasy IV. And I loved it even more, which is why it's so high on this list. Sabin became my favorite character. I loved his whole martial arts persona. It was great. And the fact that he could use claws. And then later in the game, I got a special item called the Offering, which lets you do 4 attacks. Super. But anyway, the story is solid. It mostly focuses on Tara Branford and her being a half Esper. And then the Empire's attempts to manipulate her to get access to the land of the Esper in order to harness magic. And then and every character in the game, virtually every character has a sort of a sub-story of their own. Some big, some small. You have Locke, who you find out in the second half of the game, his ultimate goal was to try to revive his girlfriend who's been in suspended animation. But it's a massive game, and it's one that I don't play much because it does take a lot of time investment to play it all the way through. That doesn't detract from its enjoyability. It just means, as a busy adult, you just don't have the time to invest. Final Fantasy III, which is 6, has a lot of things in it that I like. You get a 4-character party. Not quite as cool as 5 characters like in Final Fantasy IV, but still cool. I especially love having Mog, and he has his various dances that he can learn from the different environments. I loved using the one associated with wind because he would intermittently do a healing ability on the party, which can come through clutch right when you need it. And all the characters in the game have unique abilities, which entices you to mix and match different party members into your party and see what combinations that you like the best. So anyone's favorite party might be different depending on your playstyle. Personally, I liked having Terra, Edgar, Sabin, and Mog. That's my favorite party. I'd love to hear what your favorite party is in the comments if you're as big a Final Fantasy VI fan as I am. So, number 1, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Now, this game I rented from the video store and beat it as a rental. That's how much time I spent with it, but I mean, what can you say about it? It's a contender for best Zelda game, best game on the SNES, and even for some people, probably just, pound for pound, one of the best games ever made. It's a solid game. I know there's some haters out there who are spoiled by modern Zelda games and maybe can't get into it as much or think that there's mistakes. I couldn't believe that. Somebody said that they played A Link Between Worlds and said that it fixed all the mistakes in A Link to the Past. And it took every ounce of self-control I had in my body not to tear them a new one in the comments. But as for Link to the Past itself, it's terrific. It's the first appearance of the Master Sword. You get a fully fleshed story, and story that actually, you get story that's actually continuously progressed, as opposed to the first two games where you just get an overall story and then you just kind of go through the game. This one actually has progression in the story. And then you have the Dark World and Light World, and a whole inventory of items that's conveniently listed on a single screen, and a lot of variety in the environment. You got the Lost Woods, you got the desert, you have a swampy area, you have a lake, you have Death Mountain, of course, and then later in the game you have an ice dungeon. I could sit here all day and just tell you everything I love about this game, but I'm not reviewing the game, I'm just listing it. So, Link to the Past far surpasses everything else. It goes on my top favorite games of all time, never mind just Super Nintendo. So, some people might be shocked, but wait a minute. Where is Super Metroid? Well, to be honest with you, I've never played Super Metroid. I played the intro of it a long time ago, where you go into that, I guess, space station or something, and then it starts blowing up, so you have to run out again. I played that part, and based on that, I liked what I saw. The controls felt solid, and obviously it's Metroid. It's a series that at that time got the same very careful time and attention that Mario and Zelda and Final Fantasy got. And maybe I'll get around to playing it one day. I know a lot of people consider it to be a mandatory SNES game, but it's just one that I didn't have as a kid. So, that's that. But I'd love to hear what your opinions on my choices are and what your favorite SNES games are in the comments. So, thank you for watching this, and I'll see you next time. That will do it for this chapter. Thank you for checking out my channel. If you like my content, please tell me in the comments below, or if you have any general feedback, I'd welcome that as well. Make sure you subscribe so that you're always up to date with all of my latest gaming adventures.